Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level. Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase, the podcast that helps you succeed in your business, career, and life. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group, and with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic. It's been a hectic few weeks, starting with the conference that we are going to be talking about, the 10X Growth Conference. And, the takeaways from this were amazing. And it was more than just a conference. It actually started out, those of us that attended virtually got 3 days prior to the conference of courses that each one was about 2 hours long and a whole range of topics basically focused on selling, scaling, and marketing your business. And this was just an amazing experience.
Yeah, I mean it's unbelievable. I mean what you did for me is put together five very well spaced but bulleted just topic pages. That's how much that you were exposed to there. So I'm sitting here saying, wow, I mean, we could talk about this for the next 3 years and so on and so forth. So I'm very interested to see, you can give the overview on that, but I'm going to want to know what the experts had to say about some of these topics that you and I have discussed before and, new things that you learned. So.
Absolutely. And, they really were experts. Every speaker was a multi-millionaire or billionaire. And with only one exception, they all started with nothing. They made their money in business, not government handouts, not inheriting, with, again, one exception. And it was absolutely amazing because they talked about the fact some of these guys, Jimmy John, who is the founder of Jimmy John's sandwich chain, didn't even have a college diploma. Mike Rowe actually started out as an opera singer. Most people know him as the host of Dirty Jobs. There were a couple of other, household names, Martha Stewart, Ryan Reynolds, and they talked about their businesses and they talked about what it takes to succeed in business. And every one of them, it came down to three basic messages. The first one is, yes, it doesn't matter if you have a college degree. It doesn't matter if you start with nothing. You can accomplish this. You have to focus. You have to learn what you're doing, but you can accomplish it. And it wasn't just the folks on the stage. They talked about people that they had hired who started out as drivers or, household help that had no experience doing anything. And they learned the businesses and now they're millionaires. So these aren't folks that were hoarding their money. They're creating multimillionaires other than themselves. So that was the first big one, was that, yes, you can do it if you put in the work. The second really big thing was promote, promote, promote. Everybody has to promote what they do. And it's promoting what you do, promote why you do it, and promote who you are. So many of us get shy when we have to promote ourselves. We'll promote anybody else. But when it comes time to promoting yourself, all of a sudden you're quiet. You can't be quiet. We're taught not to brag. Don't worry about bragging. If people don't know what you do, then they're not going to buy from you. So you need to promote, promote, promote. And, we've talked about that on the podcast. And it really is that simple. The third big takeaway was that nobody does this alone. Whether you have employees, whether you partner with people, whether you collaborate, the most successful people didn't get there by themselves. They all had help. They all worked with other people, and they all learned from other people and kept learning. So those three takeaways, basically every speaker on the stage had something to say about these takeaways.
Wow, that's amazing. And basically, the topics that you gave me came under seven different super topics. First one was mindset and attitude, and then clarity and strategy, and then sales and lead generation, follow up and scaling, product and offer structure, execution and growth, marketing and promotion. And number eight was the final thoughts and philosophy. But right off the bat is the one that's right up my attitude, alley. And number one is just mindset and attitude. And one of the biggest bullets down there is starting, which we've talked to a zillion times, with the purpose. And you had your little formula there is what you love plus what you're good at plus who you help. And tell me what all these superstars had to say about that. And I'm sure that they were emphasizing that that's what the whole thing starts with.
They did. And that formula comes right from one of the speakers. Again, there was so much. I wish I could tell you which speaker said which, but after 3 days of courses and 3 days of speakers, it all kind of blends together. But they all had something to say about that purpose. The formula was right from one of the speakers. And it was not about just doing what you love. And a number of them actually said this. We talk about that all the time. Oh, do what you love and the money will follow. Well, not if you're not good at it. You may love golf, but if you can't hit the ball to save your life, you're never going to make it on the pro circuit. So your purpose has to be what you love plus what you're good at. And then the third part of that is, who are you helping? Purpose has to be about other people, not just yourself. And every one of these folks talked about how much they got from helping other people. And it wasn't just, well, if I help this person, they'll help me, and this way I can succeed more. It was way beyond that. Two of the speakers, and I'm probably going to botch the pronunciation of her last name, but Dr. Mackie Zanganet. Okay? She was involved in biotech. This woman is a billionaire. Okay? She talked about the fact that with Bob Duggan, another one of the guests who was a venture capitalist, the two of them invested in a biotech firm. And the biotech firm was very poorly run. Now, they could have taken their money and run. They could have just exited and left it alone. They didn't. They poured more money into it, stepped in, and took over that biotech firm. That biotech has now come out with a treatment for cancer. And this is why they didn't just walk away, because they knew the potential of what they had. You've probably seen commercials for the cancer drug Lutrita. This is what came of that. And now further clinical trials are finding that it's actually possible that this can treat more cancers than they originally thought. So knowing what that they had that, they could not walk away. They went, no, this is something we need to do. Bob Duggan also has a foundation that he is bringing educational opportunities to underprivileged kids around the world. He has one program in Costa Rica that the Costa Rican government told him point blank, there's no point in doing this. These people are too stupid to learn. And he went in anyway. He said, no one is too stupid to learn. And he created a Spanish language dictionary that each entry started with a picture of what it was. And that dictionary got the learning process started. He is now educating folks around the world that could not read, could not write, and stood no chance of standing on their own because of the lack of opportunity. By educating them, they actually now have opportunity. And of course, Grant Cardone, who is the organizer of the conference, he's best known as the author of the 10X rule. He also has a foundation that's helping to educate students, underprivileged students, right here in the United States. And he's not just making sure they read and write, he's actually making sure that they have the skills to take advantage of opportunities. They're learning how to communicate, how to market themselves. And he's actually working with these kids to get them internships in different organizations so that they can get opportunities. Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs has a foundation. He is trying to encourage people to get educated in what used to be called manual labor. And he's talking about plumbing, electricians, welders. In fact, he shared a conversation that he had with one business consortium. These guys are responsible for most of the companies that manufacture for the Defense Department. So you're talking about airplanes, submarines. And they told him point blank, they came to him and said, we need your help finding these people. And he asked, well, what are you looking for? It's like, we currently need 140,000 welders. People got so caught up in getting a four-year degree and then an advanced degree that we no longer have enough welders to meet the demand that industry has. So he is working to get more people doing carpentry, being electricians, doing plumbing. Because as most of us found out during COVID, you know what? We can go without a baseball star. We can go without an actor. When something's wrong with the electricity, you need an electrician. You need a carpenter to do repairs. These folks are always going to be in demand, and you can make six figures right out of an apprenticeship with some of these. So it's not even that you're struggling because you like it. You can make big money doing these things. So all of these folks, all of these speakers have programs to pass on the wealth, to help people help themselves.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, all these purpose, and then the next one that I really love is believe in your story, take the compliment and return the energy. And this all goes under the promote, promote, promote your what and your why and who you are. And a lot of the problems out there, I mean, you talked about welders and electricians and so on and so forth. and people just lump those as hands-on jobs. Therefore, they can't be as good as being an executive and this and that, whatever. And these are big misconceptions that need to be debunked because obviously jobs in manufacturing and in the goods there, those are very, very lucrative and they're very, very secure. And we need a whole lot of them. And a lot of people just have a ball doing that kind of stuff too. But I love that. Believe in your story, take the compliment and return the energy. And I'm sure a lot of these people, as you said, came from nothing and have made it to where they are right now. That's what they had to do. Believe in themselves, go out and talk it out, promote it, and then take the compliment and just spread it. That's how you have success out there.
Absolutely. Believing in your story is so important. We all have a story. And the truth of the matter is, and I myself am guilty of it, is that we do something or will accomplish something, and then we'll go, oh, well, anybody could have done it. It's not a big deal. And you don't bring it up. Well, you have to believe in what you do because the fact of the matter is, not everyone can do what you did. People tend to dismiss themselves, and it's very important not to do that. Believe in yourself, believe in your story, and tell your story. Let people know what you've done. And yes, it goes back to promote, promote, promote. And take the compliment and return the energy. This is something we actually talked about with Bob Berg, author of The Go Giver. It's one of his rules that you have to be willing to receive. And it's true. When people are offered a compliment, most folks, oh, it was nothing. No, oh, no. When somebody pays you a compliment, mirror the emotion, thank them right then and there. It's like, oh, you were fantastic. Thank you so much. You know what? That means a lot to me because that's returning the energy, and the energy keeps cycling and you build positive energy that way. And again, Bob Berg has this in his book, The Go Giver, as one of the laws of success. And it really is true. We do need to reciprocate.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the misconceptions out there is that these people who have made it through arrogance and so on and so forth. That's not the way that it works. And what they are doing is they're doing this through unconditional giving. And if you're giving unconditionally, you should be unconditionally receiving also, because people know what you're doing is coming from the heart and because you want to help people. And it really, basically, whatever you're getting materially, that's a side effect from that. And what they're doing is they're reinvesting that so they can help people even more with that. So it's so important there. The next one here, which is really, really important also, you talked about not being able to do it alone, is be mindful of the people in your life. And these are the people that you're going to help, but these are other people that you could know or meet through things like networking and this and that and whatever. So that's a really, really interesting one who I can think of just personally, but obviously it's a key to success also.
It really is. And, Eric Trump told a story about that. And, he was the one exception of the speakers that didn't start with nothing. And yet he also started at the bottom. Before he could do anything in real estate with his family, he worked construction, he worked as an electrician. And in fact, today he still does some of those things just to keep his hand in. But he told a story that he had a driver, and that driver was always willing to go the extra mile. And Eric Trump and the rest of the Trump family took that to heart. You know, he would say, oh, this person needs to get picked up at the airport. I'll take care of it. Oh, you need to go get these contractors need to be shown around the site. I'll take care of it. And while he was doing all of this, he was learning the business. And the Trump family paid attention to that. That driver is now the manager of their hotel property in Las Vegas. And because he has such an attention for detail and he showed all of what he was willing to do, the Trump family doesn't have to watch over him. They have complete confidence in them. And again, this person started as a driver. He's now making his own fortune because he paid attention and the Trump family saw what he was doing and appreciated it and took care of him the way they should have.
Yeah, that's something that I did not know.
Yeah.
Uh, but obviously, that's a fantastic story. So, bullet number two was clarity and strategy, which is very, very important. And a couple of things it says here, it says, it's your job to be heard. It's not other people's job to listen. And then again, what you talked about is what problem do you solve? Be clear. We always talk about in networking, you want to talk about your value added and how you're solving problems for other people. So, I would imagine that clarity and strategy, obviously, it is so, so important to do that. And it does go along a lot with bullet number six, which is execution and growth, which is putting together the plan to make things happen. So, can you share a little bit on those two topics, clarity, strategy, and then execution and growth?
Well, execution and growth was another thing that was just focused on by so many of the speakers. You can have the greatest plan in the world. If you don't execute it, it doesn't mean anything. You actually have to take action, and not little actions. You need to take massive action. You need to tackle what you're doing. And they were all so clear about this because, again, the greatest plan in the world doesn't mean anything if all it does is sit on a shelf. If it's not being acted on, it's not going to become a business. And the plan always has to start with what problem do you solve? That is how everything has to start. If you're not solving a problem for someone, you don't really have a business. That's what they're buying. This was not a speaker. This was just an old story, but the CEO of Black and Decker at one sales meeting told his staff, "We don't sell drills. What we're selling is holes because that's what the customer wants. We are selling them a way to get that hole through their drills." Every speaker hit upon that same thing. You're there to solve a problem. What you are solving, what you are providing, is the solution for that problem. Or better still, you're providing the method for them to solve the problem on their own. You're actually empowering your clients to solve the problems using your products and services. And that it starts with the problem. And if you're not making what that problem is clear, people will not respond. And again, that first one, it's your job to be heard. It's not other people's job to listen. We had guest Kim Angelini on the podcast not too long ago who said something very similar, that it's not your client's job to remember you, it's your job to be memorable. You can't expect your client to pay attention to everything you say and to remember you all the time, or your potential clients. You have to go out of your way to get your message heard and make it memorable. And that's how you succeed. And it's one of those basic building blocks that just about every speaker talked about. If you're not making yourself clear, if you're being mysterious or you're being quiet and shy, you're not going to get the sale. And that was another big focus, was promote, promote, promote is about getting leads. But those leads don't mean anything if you haven't made the sale. You need to be selling. And it doesn't matter what you do. If you're an investor, a venture capitalist, if you're a secretary, no matter who you are in an organization, from the lowest person right up to the CEO, it is the responsibility of every person to sell themselves, their company, and their products and services, because that's how you build your success.
Yeah, under your clarity and strategy here, one of the big bullets and the how-tos there is to construct a talk. And I'm sure that you heard a lot of amazing presentations out there. And basically, before that, your preparation and what is the problem that you solve for the audience and who is the audience that you solve it for. And then basically, we've talked about this before as far as good presentations, and it's not rocket science. We've mentioned this before too, but the opening is connecting with the audience via a personal story. And I'm sure those were very, very, very powerful. And then what happened? What were you thinking? Your content and describing the solution, a call to an action, and then an emotional close to inspire people to go out there and just conquer the world. So I'm sure that most of the talks probably went right along those lines, but they must have been really, really interesting. So are there a few that stood out to you or?
Um, I mean, they were so amazing. One of the people that was there was an attorney. You might have heard of her. Her name is Aliyah Hababa, and I had a lot of trouble saying her name also. She originally came from Iran, and you might have been familiar with her because during all of the lawsuits of 2024, she was Donald Trump's attorney. And she is now part of the administration. But what struck me was just the power and confidence, because she talked about the fact that she didn't go to an Ivy League school. She didn't go to one of the top law schools. She didn't have the money to do that. But she, again, basically worked her way up to the point where, when before she joined Donald Trump's attorney's legal team, she was pro bono. She had already made her millions as an attorney. She was working pro bono to help rape victims get justice. And the power of her talking about how people treated her, how she worked with these victims that didn't have any other way to get justice. This was so powerful, it really stood out. And all I kept thinking while I was watching her was there was a news story during the election that somebody had said, well, Donald Trump is afraid of powerful women. Really? They never met this woman.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Again, I'm just meeting some of these people that you're talking about, so it's really really neat. But I can just imagine the power that one had.
Yeah, and a lot of these folks, again, the folks that were in biotech, real estate investors, venture capitalists, a lot of these folks I had never heard of. So I went into it just going, okay, what does this person have to say? And each person talked for about 45 minutes to an hour, and 10 minutes into each of these talks, I was sitting there glued to the screen, just, oh my God. Even, Ryan Reynolds was the final speaker of the conference because he was the best known. And I know him from a couple of movies and TV shows. Nothing I was ever really a big fan of. So I was like, oh, well, okay. But everything else was so great. Let me hear what he has to say. And he talked about his businesses, multiple businesses, because he didn't make his fortune as an actor. He made it. He bought a telecommunications company, Mint Mobile. He owns a soccer team. And he talked about serving the people. And he told a great story. He was involved. The soccer team he bought is from the small town in Wales. I believe it's Wales. And they brought over a crew to do a documentary about the town. And he's sitting there with the cameraman, and the cameraman saying, we're having a problem. Nothing ever goes on around here. There's nothing to film. And they're talking to this priest. And the priest looks at his watch and says, I apologize. I have to cut this short. I have an exorcism to attend to.
Oh,
And Ryan Reynolds just turns to the camera and goes, "What do you mean there's nothing going on? Talk to these people. Go." It's
wow.
there's always a story.
That is so neat. So obviously, there's
Yep.
other things that they talked about following up and
There,
scaling and executing and so on and so forth. But
there, there are loads of other things that they talked about, and I think we are going to have to make a second episode to follow up on this, because by the clock on the wall, we are just about out of time. So, Chip, what do you think was the big takeaway today?
well, I guess we'll have to stay tuned for the sequel. But you started. I'm going to end with what you started with, the three messages. Number one is you can accomplish this, and basically just mention do the work. That's what all these people did. Number two is promote, 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 which starts what your purpose and your why is and why you're doing what you're doing. And then number three, which is so, so important, is nobody does it all alone. You always have to have other people working with you that are on your team. And those, obviously, a lot of the world complicates a whole bunch of different things. And what we like to do is simplify things. And these are three simple things that obviously it took 3 days for you to learn about, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, it was such an amazing experience. The energy in the room was so intense, you could feel it even though you were watching virtually. And again, this wasn't, multimillionaires and billionaires talking among themselves. Yes, there were millionaires in the audience, and to get a front row seat did cost a pretty penny. But you had 150,000 people watching this virtually. And if you watched it virtually, you had your choice of two packages. You had the basic package, which was free, and you had what they called the VIP package that came with extra bonuses, and that was a whopping $49. So the whole point of this conference was not to talk amongst the wealthy. It was to spread the word and make people more wealthy by showing them that, yes, they can do it. There's help available, and they need to start the process. Yes, the three takeaways I shared at the beginning that you said were the big takeaways were so important, but the final one was that you have to execute. There's always a reason to make an excuse. That same reason is a reason to double down and work harder and execute the plan. That's how the work gets done, and that's how millions are made. And everybody has the capability of doing it. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.